How did a hardworking, successful daughter end up becoming the family's endless wallet for years, without anyone thinking it was unfair? How did I, the person who paid nearly a fifth of the value of our family's vacation home, end up being seen as the default responsible one? And how, after all those years of carrying the weight, did I still believe I was loved? It wasn't until that one fateful evening that I finally understood. Family ties can be the sweetest excuse to cover the ugliest imbalances. I'm Amelia Lawrence, 34 years old, living in Boise, Idaho, and this is my story. I didn't grow up in a wealthy household, but my parents, Mark and Susan, always taught me that love mattered more than money. I believed that. So much so that when I started making money from freelance financial investing, I didn't think twice when my parents asked for help with a few small things. At first it was just a few $100s to cover the winter heating bill for our log cabin in Coeur d'Alene, the vacation house they bought 10 years ago and only visited during the holidays. Then it became a few thousand for the heating system repair. Then health insurance costs for Mom when her primary policy didn't cover medication after her knee surgery. I never tracked anything. I didn't feel the need. These were my parents. My family. I thought simply, they raised me, now it's my turn to give back. But that turn just kept going, year after year. When my younger sister Chloe graduated with a communications degree and couldn't find a job, Mom called me in the middle of the night. You know how hard it is to find work in Chloe's field. We're thinking of helping her start an online business. She just needs about $5,000, 0 cents for ads and equipment. I paused for a second, then agreed, like I always did. I don't hate Chloe. But every time she had a new idea, it meant I had to pull out my wallet. First it was a YouTube baking channel, then vintage clothing sales, and most recently life coaching. None of them lasted more than 8 months. And of course, who paid for the marketing, cameras, trial studio rentals? Me. Once, I said no and my mom broke down over the phone. Amelia, you're always okay. Chloe is more sensitive, not as strong as you. Without her sister, how could she possibly make it in this world? That was when I began to realize. I wasn't loved for being Amelia. I was loved for being the one who could take hits and shell out cash on cue. Not a daughter, but the family's financial plan B. Last year what stunned me wasn't how much I had spent, it was how natural it seemed to them. I received the property tax bill for the vacation home, $6,200 0 cents, along with a short text from Dad. Yours, like every year. No thank you, no are you doing okay? Just a silent command. I froze. I began listing every single thing I had paid for over the past 6 years. 6 seasons of property tax for the cabin. $37,200, 0 cents. Chloe's car, I made the payments she promised to repay, never did. 14,000. 0 cents. Roof repairs after the storm, $11,800. 0 cents. Medication and 4-day hospital stay for Mom, $6,900. 0 cents. 2 family holiday trips, flights, hotels, gifts. All under my name. $17,400. 0 cents. Total, $87,300. 0 cents. Almost the cost of a small home where I live. And that's not even counting the hours I spent handling their paperwork, paying late bills, submitting insurance premiums so Mom wouldn't lose coverage. I used to think of it as duty, as the responsibility of a grown daughter. But staring at the Excel spreadsheet on my screen, a strange feeling surged in my chest. Anger and hurt. I, who always showed up, always paid, always carried the burden, had become the only one in the family who wasn't allowed to be tired. No one had ever asked me, "Are you okay?" No one had ever said, "Thank you for doing that for all of us." They only said, "You've got time. You make more than Chloe. You're successful, you'll be fine." And I believed those words long enough to trap myself in a cycle of responsibility, where I was the only one paying the dues, but no one even saw me. I'm not writing this to complain. I'm writing this because it's finally time to face the one question I've avoided all these years. If I stopped paying, would they still consider me part of this family? Amelia, you are being unbelievably selfish right now. My father's voice hit me like a slap in the breezy living room of our vacation house in Coeur d'Alene. I stood frozen, still holding the $6,200.00 property tax bill he had just slid across the table. Like a slap to my face. Your sister is trying to rebuild her business after her last failure, and you make so much money, you should know how to share. I bit my lip. My heart pounded. Not from rage, but from pain. It was just a regular Sunday afternoon. Just a simple family meal. Or so I thought. Turns out, it was a surprise trial. And I was the defendant. Dad, I've been paying for this house for 6 years. The taxes, roof repairs, winter utilities. I paid for Mom's hospital bills. And Chloe? I bought her a car. Because you can, he snapped, slamming his hand on the table. When your family needs you, you help. Chloe needs money to start over, and you're just sitting on yours? I felt like I was being crushed. I had never felt so alone, in the presence of my own parents. My mom sat quietly on the couch, staring at her hands, avoiding eye contact. She didn't defend me, didn't interrupt. And that silence hurt more than the yelling. I placed the bill back on the table and was about to leave when my eyes caught a pale yellow envelope, tucked under a copy of Forbes. A corner of white paper peeked out, stamped with bold letters that made my heart stop. Chloe Lawrence, trust agreement. I didn't think. I grabbed it before anyone could react. Amelia, that's private. Put it down right now, Dad shouted, stepping toward me. But I had already opened it. And within the first few lines my hands began to tremble. It confirmed, a trust fund worth $320,000.00 had been set up by my father, exclusively for Chloe. With an addendum, it would be funded annually, with $10.00 from his private investment portfolio, until she turned 40. It felt like a knife through the heart, signed by my own father. My voice cracked. A trust fund? For Chloe? Dad snatched the papers and hid them behind his back. You weren't supposed to know about that. When I needed money for college, you said we couldn't afford it. I worked nearly 40 hours a week while studying just to pay for rent and books. But Chloe, she went to a private university, lived in fancy dorms, had a car. And now she gets a trust? My mother clenched her fists, still silent. My father looked at me like I had done something wrong. You're strong. You don't need help, Chloe does, she needs us. No, Dad. I'd managed on my own because I had no other choice. You pushed me to the edge while Chloe was always caught before she fell. I felt a tightness in my throat. Not from anger, but from shock. I remembered when I was 25 and my only car broke down in the middle of winter. I had to walk to work in ankle-deep snow. I asked to borrow just a few $100s to fix it. Dad said no. Said, finances are tight right now. Tight? Or was it all going to Chloe? I collapsed onto a chair, staring out the window where the orange glow of sunset washed over the lake. As kids, Chloe and I used to sit here eating ice cream, dreaming of big futures. I never imagined that one day, I'd be the one left behind in the house we once called home. I don't want to fight for anything, I whispered. But I can't keep living like an ATM for this family, while being treated like I'm invisible. My dad lowered his voice, but didn't look at me. That's how your mother and I chose to protect Chloe. And who protected me, Dad? No one answered. I stood up. No more tears, just a heavy silence that hung in the air, like all the oxygen had been sucked out of the room. I'll handle the taxes this year, I said, my voice ice cold. One last time. My dad nodded, as if I'd just done the right thing. But he didn't realize. That nod would be the last time he saw me as someone he could control. I left the house, the cold air hitting my face like a slap back to reality. On the entire drive back to Salt Lake City, I didn't play music. Didn't cry. Didn't call anyone. I thought about one thing. How injustice was sugar-coated under the label of family. Am I, Amelia, would no longer be the fool standing in the shadows. I used to try not to dwell on the past. I told myself maybe my parents were struggling back then. That every child has their own path. That the difference in treatment was just timing, circumstance, maybe a shift in finances. But when I read the words, trust fund for Chloe only, every excuse I'd ever told myself collapsed like a cruel joke. I began to remember. Not in a romanticized way, but in a raw, painful truth. I remembered the day I got my partial scholarship to Idaho State University. I jumped up in joy, hugged my mom, and asked, "Mom, can we manage the rest of the tuition? It's just about $9,000 a year. I promise I'll work part-time to help." She squeezed my hands and sighed. "Sweetheart, money's tight right now. We don't want you in debt, but you're resourceful. You'll figure it out." I didn't get angry, I believed her. So much so that I worked as a barista 6 days a week near campus. Classes in the morning, work in the afternoon, homework late at night. There were nights I fell asleep on my textbooks with the scent of coffee still clinging to my hair. Meanwhile, Chloe, she got accepted to a private school in California, double my tuition, and not a word of hesitation. My parents flew her out for orientation, rented her a studio apartment near campus, and gifted her a brand new Subaru Forester for graduation. I asked Mom, "Back when I was in college, you said we didn't have enough money." She just smiled. "Chloe's different. She's more fragile. You're strong. You can handle anything." I laughed, a bitter laugh that burned in my throat. Strong. That word followed me like a shackle my entire life. I was strong, so I had to give up the good stuff for her. I was strong, so I wasn't allowed to complain when Chloe threw tantrums. I was strong, so I didn't need new toys or birthday parties or even encouragement. I was strong, so I had to carry it all. When Chloe cried over failing math, Mom hired a tutor. When I aced the state math exam, she just said, "Well, we knew you could do it." I used to think a compliment is enough. Until I realized, praise doesn't pay for medicine. Praise doesn't cover rent. Praise doesn't fill the gas tank. Chloe didn't have to be strong. She just had to look helpless at the right time, and the world would lay itself at her feet. I remembered that one winter evening when I was 17. I asked to go to prom with my friends, the only time I ever wanted to feel like a princess. I found a discounted dress. Second-hand but perfect. $90. I came home and asked Dad, "Can I buy it? I'll pay for half from my part-time job." He lowered his newspaper, didn't look at me and said, "There's no money for frivolous things, Amelia. You should focus on your future." A month later, Chloe got her hair done at a salon, her nails too, a designer dress and even a rented limousine. For her 9th grade formal. 9th grade. I wasn't jealous. But I was heartbroken. I kept wondering, was I ever truly loved, or was I just the model daughter used to guilt Chloe into being good enough? I don't blame Chloe. She grew up in a world where everything was handed to her, and believed that was normal. She doesn't know what it's like to ask permission just to buy a favorite book, or work late shifts while studying over instant noodles. I blame my mother's silence. I blame my father's harsh eyes that saw me not as a daughter, but as an investment. Last week, I texted Mom about Chloe's trust fund. She replied, "Honey, that's just your father's way of preparing for her future. She needs stability. You already have it." "Already have it?" I typed back. "Because of who?" She didn't respond. I stayed up all night that night. The memories came crashing back like a storm, destroying the last shred of belief I had in the idea of a fair family. The next day I opened my laptop and created a new folder. Evidence, family contributions. If they saw me as the only one responsible for holding this family together, then it was time. They looked at every dollar I'd withdrawn for them. And this time I wouldn't stay silent. I would no longer let my competence be the excuse they used to pile all the responsibilities, ones that should have been shared, onto my shoulders. I never thought I'd one day have to build a financial case against my own family. That morning I woke up with two conflicting emotions. Relief for finally speaking the truth, and heartbreak because that very truth had pushed me even further away from my parents. But when I checked my phone, the message from my father erased any remaining doubt. Have you changed your mind yet? The property tax is due next week. I trust you won't let the family down. No apology, no mention of the trust fund. Just more demands, as if everything I'd done over the years was simply expected. I took a deep breath, sat down at my desk, and reopened the folder, Family Contributions, I had started the night before. I pulled up every email with a bank transfer confirmation, every credit card statement, every vague thank you text my mom had ever sent. Messages like, "Thanks. This month's a bit easier now. No, we'll pay you back. No, let's split it." Just me, and the unnamed responsibilities they kept handing over. I spent the entire day tallying everything up. A long list, detailed like one of my investment strategy sheets. Total, $87,300. But I knew there was more. Small expenses like plumbing repairs, emergency money transfers for Chloe when she overspent a little, paying the utility bills when my parents were waiting on an investment to come through. After 2 days of non-stop work, I brought the entire file to the person I trusted most with finances. Jacob Grant, my investment advisor since the day I started earning big from the stock market. Jacob's office was on the 17th floor, a modern space with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the Boise Mountains. I placed the thick file on the desk without a word. Jacob looked at me for a moment, then put on his reading glasses. He flipped through every page, silent. At the summary sheet, he paused. "Melia, over $87,000? You never mentioned any of this." I gave a dry laugh. "Because I thought, it's just something you do, it's family, right?" Jacob didn't laugh. He set the file down and removed his glasses. "I don't want to sound cold, but you're depleting your financial future. This isn't helping anymore. It's financial abuse within the family." I swallowed hard. Even though I'd said it to myself 1,000 times, hearing someone else, especially a professional like Jacob, say it aloud still stung. "I want to refer you to someone," Jacob said. "Victor Hernandez. He's a forensic accountant who specializes in family finance disputes. He's good. And discreet." I nodded. "I don't want to sue anyone. At least not yet. I just need a clean record. So if anyone ever calls me selfish again, I can show them exactly what that word cost me." 3 days later, I had my first meeting with Victor. A Latino man in his 50s, deep voice, sharp eyes that felt like they could read my thoughts. He examined the documents I brought like a doctor reviewing a CT scan. "I have to say, your file is extremely detailed. Not many people keep documentation this precise." "I work in finance, it's a habit," I replied. Victor nodded. "We'll need to create a full ledger with third-party verification. I'll also calculate the investment returns you lost by withdrawing funds at the wrong times." Return? If you hadn't spent that money on your family and instead reinvested it based on your prior stock portfolio, we're looking at a missed gain of at least $13,800. Could go up to $16,000, factoring in compound interest. I was stunned. Nearly $100,000 gone. And in return? A house I didn't own. A car I never drove. Thanksgiving dinners I paid for, but was never mentioned in the toast. Victor looked at me, voice softening. "You're trying to save everyone else while you're the one being left behind. Do you want to pursue legal action?" I shook my head. "Not yet. But I want everything in my hands, so that next time, I don't feel scared." He nodded. "Then let's get started." I left Victor's office feeling like I'd just woken up from a 6-year trance. In my hand was the first step toward clarity. And I knew, starting now, my family would no longer see me as a walking wallet. That night, after returning from Victor's office, I sat in my small apartment. The glow from neighboring buildings reflected on my window. I hadn't turned the lights on. In the soft darkness, I felt something I hadn't felt in a long time. A quiet, haunting certainty. I was done. Not angry. Not vengeful. Just finished. The next morning, I opened my laptop and logged into all my payment accounts. My hands didn't shake like I thought they would. I removed my credit card from the vacation home's utility bill account in Coeur d'Alene. I canceled the automatic transfer for Chloe's car loan, a payment I had been covering for 2 years, clinging to the naive hope that she'll pay me back eventually. I called the bank and asked to be removed as co-signer from the family credit card, the same account where I was always the first one called when it was overdue. And finally, I transferred $95,000 from my main trading fund to a brand new investment account titled Amelia's Future. No more family. No more support. Just me, and what I deserve. My phone started buzzing non-stop around noon. The first message was from Chloe. "Did you forget this month's payment? The bank says the car's past due." I read it. But I didn't reply. 15 minutes later it was my father. "Amelia, what's going on? I haven't seen confirmation for the property tax payment. Your sister also mentioned something about her car. What are you doing?" I still said nothing. By evening my phone was vibrating so much I had to turn off notifications completely. When I turned it back on, the message inbox was flooded with blame, accusations, even subtle threats like, "Can the family not count on you anymore?" But not a single person asked, "What happened that made you change so drastically?" They didn't care about the reason. They only cared about the cash flow. I sat down at the dining table, set my phone aside, and started typing a single email. Simple, concise, and cold. From Amelia Lawrence to Mark and Susan Lawrence. Subject: regarding financial contributions. Dear Mom and Dad, I'm writing this email to inform you that, effective immediately, I will no longer be responsible for any financial obligations related to the family. This includes but is not limited to property tax, maintenance bills, Chloe's car payments, or shared holiday expenses. I have also removed myself from any accounts linked to my bank cards or credit information. This is not a spontaneous decision. After compiling all financial contributions over the past 6 years, verified by a forensic accountant, I have determined that I've contributed over $98,000 without any form of support or acknowledgement from the family. I am not doing this to reclaim money. I am doing this to reclaim boundaries and respect. If you need to discuss further, please contact me via email. I will not respond to any calls or text messages regarding financial matters from this point forward. Wishing you well. Amelia. I hit send and turned off my Wi-Fi. That night I slept surprisingly soundly. No dreams, no tossing and turning. The next morning my phone rang while I was having breakfast. Caller, Chloe. I let it ring until it stopped. Then I went back to my oatmeal. An hour later, a flood of messages from Chloe arrived. Are you insane? I might not have a car to get to work. Who do you think you are, cutting everyone off like this? The whole family's freaking out. Mom and Dad said if you don't pay the property tax this year they could get penalized. You're really going to let that happen? I took screenshots of everything and saved them into a new folder. Boundary violations. Just to remind myself. This isn't me overreacting. This is me protecting myself. By the afternoon my father called. This time he left a voicemail. Amelia, I don't understand why you're acting this way. You've always helped for years. And now, over some misunderstanding about money, you're turning your back on the whole family? This is childish. I expect you to call me back, immediately. I leaned back in my chair and played the recording again. Not a single word of sorry. Not even a thank you. Only expectation. I forwarded the message to Jacob, then called him. Good job, Amelia, he said. But you should be mentally prepared. When you stop feeding the system fights back. I nodded. They can say whatever they want. But this time, I'm not going back. And just like Jacob warned, the storm came the very next day. I never liked large family gatherings. They were noisy, repetitive, and most of the time I felt like an outsider. But this time was different. This time, I was the main topic. And I was no longer afraid. A message came Thursday from my uncle.